Yes. Baptiste Rieschow.
En Thomas Driekveld.
Perfect.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our presentation. Today we will continue our search for ethical companies that do not behave as ethical as they claim to behave. And well, our next contestant has been in the news time after time again in 2010. We think it's the best company to present in our presentation because it has worked on two different aspects. First of all, its green appearance. Second of all, it tried to lubricate the environment. That's right, we're talking about BP. Thomas will begin by giving you further explanation on how BP worked on their green appearance.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Thomas, and as mentioned before, I will speak about BP's greener appearance. There was one particular word we found very often when we were looking for information about BP, and it is greenwashing. So my presentation will go as follows. First, I'm going to speak about greenwashing, then what kind of greenwashing BP did, how they did it, and how successful they were. Greenwashing is a quite new word that has become very popular to the greener lifestyle. Greenwashing is actually representing your product greener than it is. I'm going to give you an example. For example, Nestle has launched a new eco bottle that uses 30% less plastic, but to produce this bottle you need a lot more energy. So surprisingly, Nestle forgets to mention this last aspect, and the overall outcome is not as green as they represent it. Right, now that everybody understands what greenwashing is, I can start about BP. BP have gone quite recently with the development of their greener image. They did it with a broad variety of different techniques. None of them are actually greener, but all of them do seem to work. The first one is the renovation of their logo. The old BP shield has been replaced by a newer brand image to win over environmentally aware customers. As you can see on the slides, the new logo has the shape of a flower and the sun with green, yellow and white colors to represent the environment and solar energy. The second thing they did was they changed their name from British Petroleum to Beyond Petroleum. This signifies that they are also environment-minded beyond petroleum. It means that they want to change their focus to different renewable sources provided by wind, water and sun. Furthermore, BP spent more than $200 million on their marketing campaign to advertise their new logo and their new name, instead of using this amount in actually greener energy. So $200 million just to be greener, to look greener instead of being greener. And as you can see on this slide, BP biggest investments are coming from the extraction from oil and gas, and only 7% of their energy comes from renewable resources. And then there is not only bad news. BP has also promised that on the new BP sites, the new pump stations, there will be energy solar panels above the stations to provide energy. But when you compare a few solar panels to a 200 million marketing campaign, it is obvious why BP is often called the master of greenwashing.
So greenwashing isn't the only hidden thing on BP's agenda. We have another thing, and that's called bluewashing. So bluewashing is actually the oceanic equivalent of greenwashing. It means that no matter how polluted or how dirty the ocean is or how much overfishing it is, those companies are still trying to say, hey, it's no problem, the ocean will restore, the seafood is still healthy, keep using it, which actually isn't that way. So to further explain this thing, I will give you an example. So in 2007, Obama tried to make an executive order. He tried to enforce a new policy the National Ocean Policy. The National Ocean Policy had the task to preserve and to protect the Valley waters. But immediately the oil companies started to fight against them. So they engaged in the National Ocean Policy Coalition. This coalition had the task to provoke the recreational fishermen, because they told the recreational fishermen that they will lose their rights to fish because Obama spoke of overfishing. Of course, this wasn't what Obama really meant. He tried to stop those big companies, not the small men. But immediately we already saw the power of those oil companies and those fishing companies, because after a few days, all newspapers nationwide were full of how Obama was trying to hurt the middlemen. Obama got lucky. He had a few people helping him who were very useful, and at the end he got his executive order too. So, but that's not the only thing. You also have to deal with two congressmen. There were two congressmen, and those are using their power to enforce a few bills to let the oil companies keep producing and extracting oil. The next thing I'm going to talk about, as you can see on the slides, is Canadian tar sands. Those Canadian tar sands are actually, tar sands actually means it's a kind of sand mixed with oil. So you can call it an unconventional type of oil. Until a few years ago, it wasn't really helpful, it wasn't really useful to extract the oil from those tar sands because it was too expensive, it took too much energy, etc. But now that the oil prices have gone up, BP has reinstated itself, and it now is keeping on developing in those Canadian tar sands. Those Canadian tar sands are really bad for the environment because not only it takes more energy, but it also pollutes a lot more than conventional oil. So conventional oil is about a quarter of the extraction of greenhouse gases in comparison to those Canadian tar sands. I think that if you can, so as I can conclude, you can see that not only is BP trying to rebrand itself, to give itself a good image, to transform itself by using greenwashing, they're also trying to manipulate us by by using greenwashing kind of stuff, and at the same time they're still going further down the hill with those Canadian tar sands.
Well, thank you boys for this very informative review. Despite of what some of you might think, BP has a history of disasters. Take 2005 for example, where 15 people were killed in an explosion in a refinery in Texas. Or 2006, where BP was the cause of the largest oil spill ever happened in Alaska. But like a phoenix that rises from its ashes, BP always rose as well, with bigger cash flow, higher sales, and so forth. But will BP actually survive its latest history? Will it rise again? Only one man knows, Mr. Benoit.
Thank you, Olivier. So, after all these disastrous events, you'd think that BP would invest a lot of money in their security system. Well, think again. BP has a security plan of 600 pages for the Deepwater Horizon platform in the Gulf of Mexico, but unfortunately it doesn't quite contain a lot of useful content. For example, there is no information whatsoever on what to do in case of a possible blowout. And for those that are unaware, that's the exact event that happened in Mexico. So let me first explain to you what a blowout actually is. A blowout is what happens when crude oil leaks from the well after the pressure control system has failed. So what happens afterwards is comparable with, for example, putting a Mentos in a bottle of Coke. And I think you all know what the effect of that is. So now you probably ask yourself, how is it possible that a security plan that contains less security measures than an average manual got through the official reviews time and time again? Well, different sources confirm that BP puts more money, almost more money in bribery than in their actual security measures. So BP bought gifts, drugs, and even sex for some of the guys responsible for the approval of the security system plans. So on an investment, if I can call it that way, of let's say about a couple of $1,000s, BP got a clear review in return for their security plans. So problem solved, at least that's what they thought. Because in April 2010 it happened, a major blowout in on the Deepwater Horizon platform in the Gulf of Mexico. BP of course didn't know how to react on the misery that had started. So in fear of a major lawsuit, they started lying about the actual magnitude of the disaster. BP reported that only 800,000 liters of oil was leaking into the sea every day, while the real number was up to 18 million liters of oil. And as you all know, the consequences for the animals and the nature were huge. But in an attempt to save their brand image, BP tried to conceal as many details as possible by preventing people to take pictures or make videos of the disaster. And the last thing, despite the prohibition of the government, BP continued to use Corexit. And Corexit is a cancer-inducting product that breaks up the oil underwater to make sure it does not reach the surface. So instead of only the oil, there is now a cancer-inducting product in the water as well.
Thank you, Benoit. In fact, I lied 3 minutes ago. I know what happened with BP in 2010. They made a $5 million loss. $5 million loss compared to $40 billion damage to the environment. I think that's quite a rise. We would like to thank you all for listening to our presentation and hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Next